The first sound I heard wasn't my alarm clock. It wasn't even the whir of the garbage truck making its rounds. It was the sharp crackle of a trash bag splitting open, followed by the unmistakable hiss of someone whispering, "What's this?" When I peeked through my blinds at 6:12 a.m., there she was, Karen, squatting by my curb, bathrobe flapping in the morning breeze, latex gloves pulled tight like she was about to perform surgery. Except her patient wasn't a human being, it was my trash. She had one hand clutching my tied-off garbage bag, the other holding her phone's flashlight, combing through my leftovers like an archaeologist at a dig site. I could smell the sour stink of yesterday's chicken bones drifting through my cracked window. And then came the crunch. Karen pulled out an old receipt, squinting at it like she'd just uncovered classified evidence. I wanted to storm outside, but I froze, heart thudding in my chest. Why was she doing this? What was she looking for? And more importantly, what would Karen do when she found the little surprise I'd left waiting for her at the bottom of that bag? I should probably back up. My name's Jake, and I live in a quiet cul-de-sac in a suburban neighborhood that, at least on the surface, seems picture perfect. Kids ride scooters on the sidewalk, sprinklers hiss in the mornings, and every lawn is trimmed within an inch of its life. But here's the thing about neighborhoods like mine. Behind every neat hedge and decorative mailbox, there's always one person who thinks the entire block is their personal kingdom. That person was Karen. Now, technically, she wasn't the HOA president. No, our HOA board rotated leadership every year. But if you lived on Maplewood Court, you knew the real president was the lady in the lemon yellow pantsuits, always peering over fences with her sunglasses pushed halfway down her nose. Karen had a talent for finding problems. Trash cans left out a few hours too long. You get a warning note taped to your door. A garden gnome that didn't fit the community aesthetic. Expect a letter in your mailbox citing Bylaw 3, Section B. I once got a $50 fine for leaving my recycling bin lid cracked open during a windy day. At first, I brushed it off as harmless nagging. Annoying. Sure. But livable. Until she found her new hobby, my trash. It started subtle. Back in early March, I noticed a couple of my bags ripped open after collection day. I assumed raccoons. But one Tuesday morning around 7:30 a.m., as I headed to work, I caught Karen crouched by the curb with her little Shih Tzu tugging on its leash. Only, she wasn't cleaning up after her dog. She was lifting my tight garbage bag into the air, giving it a squeeze, then setting it back down. I confronted her. Can I help you?" I asked, coffee mug still in hand. She gave me that tight-lipped smile only Karens can master. "Oh, don't mind me. Just making sure no one's putting recyclables in the wrong bin. HOA rules, you know." I knew. We all knew. But here's the kicker. It wasn't even her job. Our waste company handled recycling fines directly. The HOA didn't even check. This was Karen's personal crusade. From that point on, it escalated. April 12th. She left me a handwritten note taped to my mailbox. "I saw what looked like a battery pack in your trash. Those must be disposed of properly. Consider this a warning." April 29th. She sent a formal complaint to the HOA board accusing me of hazardous waste disposal. That turned into a $100 fine, which I had to spend 2 evenings fighting over email. By May, it became a routine. I'd roll my trash can out, and the next morning I'd find the bag shifted, ripped, or poked through. And then came the final straw. On June 3rd, I walked outside to find half my trash scattered across my lawn. Banana peels, shredded junk mail, even my kids' sticky juice boxes, all on display. And right there, standing smug with her phone out, Karen looked me dead in the eye and said, "You should really be more careful about what you throw away. Anyone could see this." That was her first strike. And it was the day I decided this little game was going to end, on my terms. But if Karen wanted to dig through my garbage, I was going to make sure she'd never forget what she found next. After that morning with my trash strewn across the lawn, things didn't calm down, they exploded. By mid-June, it wasn't just casual snooping. Karen had turned it into a full-blown investigation. Every Tuesday and Friday, our trash pickup days, she was out there before sunrise, crouching by my cans like some kind of raccoon detective. And the HOA, oh, they loved her reports. On June 10th, I got a letter. Notice of violation. Bylaw 4. Section A. Trash must be secured in approved containers at all times. Non-compliance may result in a fine of up to $250. Never mind that my cans were secured. Never mind that it was Karen herself ripping them open. The HOA didn't care about the truth, they cared about appearances. So, I showed up at the June 15th HOA meeting in the community center. Karen sat front and center, lemon yellow blazer, clipboard balanced on her lap like she was chairing a Supreme Court hearing. When my turn came, I stood and said, "Look, I don't know how else to put this. My trash is fine when I take it out. It's not fine after someone." I glanced directly at her, decides to go through it. Karen didn't even blink. Instead, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Well, if you weren't hiding anything, you wouldn't care who looked." The room went dead silent. That was Karen's style: paint suspicion, let it fester. Suddenly, I was the neighbor with something to hide. Over the next 2 weeks, things spiraled. June 20th, I found a $150 fine taped to my door for improper disposal of food waste. June 27th, another $200 fine for failure to secure confidential documents. Apparently, Karen had handed the board a shredded bank statement she'd plucked from my trash as evidence. I was bleeding money for crimes I didn't commit. And every time I complained, the HOA's answer was the same. Maybe if you cooperated with Mrs. Stevens, this wouldn't be an issue. Mrs. Stevens. That was Karen's real name. Nobody called her that. Everyone just knew her as the HOA Karen. But now, neighbors started whispering. The Johnsons across the street told me Karen had been digging in their trash too. The Lopez family caught her photographing their recycling bins. One guy even said she'd called animal control because she thought she saw a chicken bone in his yard waste. This wasn't just me, it was everyone. But Karen had decided I was the prime suspect in her garbage witch hunt. The final straw came on July 5th, the morning after the 4th of July barbecue. My family had hosted hot dogs, soda cans, paper plates. I bagged everything up neatly and left it by the curb. At 6:45 a.m., my son shook me awake. "Dad, you need to come outside." I stumbled out in my pajamas, still smelling of smoke from the fireworks, and there it was. 3 black trash bags ripped wide open. Empty soda cans rolled across the street. Grease-stained paper plates plastered my driveway. A half-eaten hot dog sat on the hood of my car like some twisted garnish. And Karen, standing right there, snapped photos with her phone. "Violation," she said. "This is all a violation." That's when I lost it. "Karen, you can't just dig through my stuff. This is harassment." Her voice went shrill, echoing down the block. "Harassment. I'm protecting this community. If you're too lazy to sort your garbage, maybe you don't belong here." Neighbors peeked through blinds. Someone muttered, "Here we go again." And in that moment, I realized arguing wouldn't work. Complaining wouldn't work. If I wanted this to stop, I had to make Karen stop. That night, sitting at my kitchen table surrounded by crumpled violation letters, I made my decision. Enough fines. Enough humiliation. Enough of Karen treating my trash like her personal treasure hunt. I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to teach her a lesson she'd never forget. And it all started with a trip to the craft store. I told myself I wouldn't stoop to petty tit-for-tat. But you don't make a person like Mrs. Stevens, Karen, stop with rational conversation. You make them stop by removing the fun from their little hobby. And because I'm mostly harmless and not a monster, I chose something theatrical, public, and impossible to claim was dangerous: glitter. But before I crossed that line, I did my homework. First, I documented everything. I printed every violation letter, every email thread, and every photo Karen had ever taken of my property. I stamped them with dates: April 12th, May 29th, June 3rd, July 5th, and made a timeline. I took screenshots of HOA meeting minutes where her complaints were read aloud. I even recorded the June 15th meeting, audio only, where she'd said, "If you weren't hiding anything," small explainer, "in our state, recording conversations in public HOA meetings is legal as long as no reasonable expectation of privacy exists, and meeting minutes are public record." Those details mattered. They turned my story from she said into a paper trail. Then I talked to people. The Johnsons, the Lopez family, even the mail carrier. Everyone had a Karen story. That's when I built my quiet coalition. No dramatic rallies, no petitions, just neighbors who were tired of being policed. Mrs. Lopez agreed to be my witness. The Johnsons agreed to keep their cameras rolling on trash days. My neighbor Mark offered his garage as a staging area, and it smelled faintly of motor oil and old paint, which somehow made the plan feel cinematic. I also phoned an old friend from law school, Amira, who now did consumer rights work. I explained the harassment pattern and asked a basic question. What can a neighbor do when someone is rummaging through their trash and weaponizing it as evidence? She told me 2 useful things. 1, while laws vary, repeatedly going through someone's discarded property can be construed as harassment or even theft in certain circumstances. And 2, the HOA has an obligation to act in good faith. If they are taking one person's skewed evidence and issuing fines without verification, that opens them up to liability. Amira didn't want me to do anything illegal. She wanted me to build a case. So that's what I did. The props were the easy part. I bought a pack of fine craft glitter, nothing toxic, just enough to be annoyingly ubiquitous, along with a few ridiculous extras. Confetti poppers, the cheap, harmless kind, a bag of sequins, and a roll of tissue paper in bright neon. I kept the receipts and the store video footage. Yes, I can be obsessive. I didn't set any traps that could hurt anyone. This was theater, not sabotage. The prep took nights. I set up a command center on July 20th in Mark's garage. A folding table, my laptop, a stack of labeled envelopes, and a map of a cul-de-sac with trash pickup time circled in red. Mini explainer. Our municipal pickup runs Tuesdays and Fridays at 6 a.m. Karen's routine time was reliably between 5:45 and 6:10, which meant timing was everything. There were close calls. Once I almost got caught printing evidence in the HOA office. Stupid move, I know, when the manager came around to restock forms. I froze, heart in my throat, and pretended to be another homeowner checking meeting dates. Another night, Mrs. Stevens nearly walked past Mark's garage while I was loading props into the trunk of my car. I ducked behind a stack of boxes and felt my pulse hammer in my ears as she passed, chatting loudly on her phone about neighborhood standards. I also scripted the narrative I'd present if anyone asked. I'm staging a community awareness stunt about privacy and harassment. True, but vague. I prepared a short, quotable line for the eventual reveal, something crisp that would land on camera. If you want to dig for date, you might find glitter. Finally, on July 27, 2 months after the ruined barbecue and half a dozen fines later, the setup was complete. Confetti poppers in a hollowed-out milk carton at the bottom of a sealed trash bag. A thin sprinkling of glitter tucked into a small, labeled envelope marked surprise. Phones charged. Neighbors on standby with cameras rolling. Amira had agreed to be on call in case the HOA tried to weaponize the aftermath. I stood on Mark's driveway at 5:40 a.m., the air smelling faintly of cut grass and exhaust, my palms sticky from handling sequins. My heart felt like a drum roll. I told myself, this is for dignity, for boundaries, for every homeowner who's had their privacy violated by someone who thinks they are the moral police. And then, as the clock hit 6 a.m., I heard the soft shuffle of slippers and the familiar whisper of nylon against polyester, the sound of Mrs. Stevens' robe before she stepped into view at the curb. I raised my phone, hit record, and whispered to Mark, now. The trap was set. The glitter was ready. What happened next was louder than I'd imagined. The morning air was still cool, that hazy in-between before the sun turns asphalt into a skillet. I crouched behind my hedges with my phone camera rolling, heart hammering like I was about to commit a bank heist instead of, well, glitter warfare. And right on cue, there she was. Karen, bathrobe tied tight, hair in rollers, latex gloves snapping into place. She moved with ritual precision, like a priestess preparing for a sacred rite. Only her altar was my garbage can. She glanced left, glanced right. The street was quiet, except she didn't know half the block had their blinds cracked, phones in hand, waiting. The Johnson's ring cam was pointed directly at her. Mark stood across the street, pretending to water his lawn but really recording from his phone. Karen lifted the lid, wrinkling her nose at the faint smell of last night's leftovers. She reached in and pulled the first bag up with a grunt. Plastic stretched. She dug her nails into the nut. Rip. And then, POW. The sound was sharp, echoing like a small firecracker. The confetti popper hidden inside went off, unleashing a blast of neon streamers and glitter straight into her face. Karen shrieked, stumbling backward, her robe flapping open as a cloud of shimmering pink and silver rained down on her. For a moment she looked like some kind of deranged Vegas showgirl, rollers in her hair, slippers dusted in sparkles, latex gloves now glowing with rainbow flecks. She coughed, spitting glitter, and then spotted the small envelope that had tumbled out of the bag. It was labeled in black Sharpie, surprise. Of course, she couldn't resist. She tore it open, and that's when the second wave hit. The tiniest, most evil kind of glitter, ultrafine, static charged, exploded upward, clinging to her face, her eyelashes, her robe. She gasped and staggered, blinking furiously as the sparkling dust coated her like a disco ball. From my hiding spot, I nearly choked trying not to laugh. But the real kicker, that's when the garbage truck turned onto the street. The driver braked hard, watching Karen flail in the middle of my driveway like she'd just survived an alien abduction. He leaned out the window and shouted, "Lady, you okay?" Karen spun around, finger pointing at my house. He set me up. That was my cue. I stepped out, phone held high, recording the whole scene. My voice was steady, louder than I felt inside. "Karen, I told you to stop going through my trash. This is harassment. Now the whole neighborhood can see it." The neighbors clapped. I swear, actual applause rippled down the block. Mrs. Lopez shouted, "Leave people alone." The Johnson kids yelled, "Glitter bomb. Glitter bomb," like it was the 4th of July all over again. Karen's face twisted. "This is illegal. I'll have you fined. I'll..." And then came the MIC drop moment. The police cruiser. Apparently, Mark had called earlier, explaining the harassment pattern, and asked for an officer to be present just in case. The timing couldn't have been better. The cruiser rolled up slowly, lights flashing, and out stepped Officer Daniels, the kind of cop who radiates calm authority. He looked at Karen, dripping in sequins, blinking like a dazed Christmas ornament, and then at me, standing with my camera. "What's going on here?" he asked. Karen burst out. "He's been violating HOA rules. He's hiding things in his garbage." I caught him. "Look." She held up her glitter-stained gloves like evidence. Officer Daniels raised one eyebrow. Then he turned to me. "Sir." I held up my phone. "Officer, I've been documenting weeks of harassment. She's been rifling through my trash, reporting fake violations, and spreading trash all over my lawn. This morning, she dug through my property again, on camera, and triggered a harmless glitter prank. The neighbors can confirm." Mrs. Lopez chimed in from across the street. "He's telling the truth. She's been snooping in everybody's trash." Daniels exhaled slowly, clearly trying not to laugh at the absurdity of Karen's sparkly disaster. Finally, he said, "Digging through someone else's garbage on their property? That's trespassing. And from what I hear, harassment too." Karen froze. "What?" "No, you don't understand. This is HOA business." That's when he hit her with it. "The HOA doesn't deputize residents to go through private trash. You've crossed a line." Silence. The neighbors leaned in like it was a soap opera cliffhanger. Karen's mouth opened, then closed. She had no comeback. And Daniels, with the faintest smirk, added, "Also, you've got glitter on your teeth." The block erupted in laughter. Even the garbage truck driver honked his horn twice in solidarity. Karen's glitter-fueled downfall was public, humiliating, and, best of all, recorded from 5 different angles. But the real consequences, those came later. The glitter bomb itself was satisfying, sure, but the real victory came in the days that followed. First, the HOA board couldn't ignore it anymore. With half the neighborhood forwarding them ring footage of Karen's sparkly investigation, they were forced to address her behavior. At the July 30th emergency meeting, the board chair cleared his throat, glanced nervously at Karen, still sparkling faintly, by the way, and read a statement. Effective immediately, No board member or resident may enforce bylaws through private inspections of another homeowner's property. Violations must be handled through official channels only. Translation: Karen, you're done snooping. And then came the fines. Oh, the sweet irony. The board issued 2 violation notices against Karen herself, one for trespassing on private property, another for creating a nuisance by scattering trash. Each carried a $250 penalty. Watching her rip those papers out of her mailbox, glitter still clinging stubbornly to her cuticles, was poetry. The neighborhood shifted, too. People started waving at me more, nodding in quiet solidarity. The Johnson sent me a thank you note with a glitter emoji drawn at the bottom. Even the garbage truck driver gave me a thumbs up the next Friday. As for Karen, she tried to regain control. She muttered about lawsuits and privacy violations, but it was too late. Once you've been filmed covered head to toe in neon sparkles while a cop tells you off, your credibility is gone. She stopped attending HOA meetings for months, and when she finally did, she sat in the back, silent, sunglasses covering her eyes. For me, the best part wasn't the revenge itself, it was the peace. Trash days went back to normal. No more ripped bags, no more bogus fines. Just the dull, boring sound of the garbage truck rolling through at 6 a.m. And every time I see a speck of glitter catch the sunlight in my driveway, I smile. It's like the universe's little reminder, Karen learned her lesson. But here's the funny part. Just when I thought the glitter war was over, Karen found a brand new way to make my life miserable. And trust me, you'll want to hear this one.